This ESPN podcast is brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com.
The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
This is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
it might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't
The
care.
BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report, Monday, Southern California. If you missed part one of the BS Report, we talked a little NHL playoffs, a little basketball playoffs, and even my trade value column, which part three went up on Friday. We did that with Joe House, my buddy, and went through a variety of things. But now, let's bring in a guy who, when we isolate him on the left side, scores about 92% of the time, highest in the NBA. Grantland, Zach Lowe, what's happening?
The left side, huh? I'll take it.
Is that your side? I read the Goldsberry shot chart. He said you liked it more on the left side than the right side.
What I don't like on the rare times that I play anymore is defense. That's the weak spot in my game. I don't like defense or a lot of physicality.
Well, defense is the first thing to go, as Jason Terry will tell you. Indiana. So we discussed this the last time on the pod. You saw Frank Vogel before the end of the season. You recognized a little gleam in his eye, a little confidence that you were surprised by how much he liked his team and his chances. Now I'm wondering if one of the reasons he felt that way was because he felt like this Knicks series was a phenomenal matchup for his team. Would you agree with that?
Oh, he liked it. I mean, there's no question. That's when he really gave me that look and started sort of laughing. You know, the idea that he was. I sort of asked him, "Are you worried about playing a small ball team and all the mismatches that creates?" And he sort of looked at me like, you know, they should be worried about playing us. We like to beat the crap out of those kind of teams, and they certainly beat the crap out of the Knicks in Game 1, and then last night or 2 days ago, whenever it was, I'm starting to lose track. Just 18 offensive rebounds and brutalized them.
And the Knicks don't look like the Knicks anymore. And I don't know. I would say maybe the Pacers get somewhere between 50 and 70% of the credit for that. But I really enjoyed watching the Knicks down the stretch last season. The regular season, especially the last, I would say, 4 weeks. I thought the ball was moving great. I liked how Carmelo was playing. J.R. Smith had a little swagger. And, I mean, there's probably 7 reasons why it fell apart. But this Knicks team we're watching now, I don't really see how things turn around. I hate to count a team out after Game 3, but I also am very skeptical that switch can go back on. It feels like there's been some real damage here over the last 2 weeks. What do you think?
Well, I'm certainly not going to count them out. I mean, they're a very good team. They've been a very good team. Essentially, you know, Indiana is equal or superior, but basically equal in terms of just every big picture metric you want to mention. I mean, it doesn't help that, you know, the flu seems to be going around at the worst possible time. You know, and they don't have home court advantage, but they still have, you know, 5 and possibly 7 at home. So I'm not going to count them out, but they don't look quite as good. And my gut is that we're going to find out if they lose this series that Tyson Chandler is not as healthy as he's saying he is and the team is saying he is. He just hasn't been a factor offensively for them in the way he was when they were really going. He hasn't been that player in a month or so since he had the flu. He lost some weight. He had the back issues and the neck issues. And I just don't think, you know, he's putting on the brave face and the Knicks are putting on the brave face because that's what you do. But this is not peak Tyson Chandler. And I think that's been the biggest difference. When the Knicks lose, everyone wants to look at Melo and everyone wants to say, oh, they played too much iso ball. They don't move the ball. But I thought in Game 3, they actually had basically the right idea on offense. It wasn't iso ball. It was a lot of pick and roll, a lot of different stuff. And like Indiana was just too good. And then people need to remember this was the best defensive team in the league all season. I mean, this is not like the Knicks' great offense floundering against some, you know, blah team. And this is one of the 10 to 15 best defenses by a lot of measures ever in the modern history of the NBA. This is not like a fluke.
House and I were talking about Chandler before you came on. I think he's obviously hurt. There's something wrong with him. And the question is he hurt or is he just starting to break down? Because those are two different things. He's somebody that has been in the league since 2001, I think. That was his draft. He's had back issues. He had, what voided the Oklahoma City trade? A foot issue?
Yeah, toe issue. I believe
toe
it was
issue.
A broken toe or some toe issue, something like that.
He's played a lot of miles. He had a 100-game season with Dallas 2 years ago. We've seen this happen with big guys. Sometimes they just go off a little mini cliff. Like we saw Jermaine O'Neal all of a sudden wasn't Jermaine O'Neal anymore. And you can't really point to any reason for it, but all of a sudden he was a different guy. And I do wonder, like you watch the way Hibbert just had his way with Chandler in game 3. It's like, all right, maybe he's injured or maybe it's just he's hitting a different point in his career. That was one problem. The other problem is we've talked about this, but and I meant this as a compliment. The Knicks fans took it personally, whatever, but they take terrible shots that they make and you watch them and you go, oh, that's a terrible shot. It goes in. And that's just what they do. It's one of their talents. When the bad shots aren't going in, J.R. Smith is a guy who takes bad shots game after game, but is really good at making them. And sometimes they don't go in. And, I look at what can they do differently? They've got to make some of those shots, but then can Ray Felton replicate what he did in the Boston series? As you're watching, I know you break down this stuff. What are they doing to Ray Felton that's just shutting him down?
Well, I mean, it's no secret. This is a really good pick and roll defense team. And again, that, it's funny you mentioned the Knicks' ability to make bad shots. And sometimes the NBA is like, if 3 out of 5 of those bad shots go in, the Knicks win. And if 0 out of 5 of them go in, the Knicks lose. But the NBA is also about sort of minimizing the number of those shots you have to take and putting yourself in the best position every single time your team has the ball. And that's, I just think for them, if you watch the tape of game 3, and again, everyone's talking about Melo and ISO ball, the Knicks, I'm looking at the numbers right now. They were 4 of 19 when the ball handler on the pick and roll took a shot, and 4 out of 10 in isolation. So that's twice as many shots basically from just the guy handling the ball in the pick and roll than they did out of isolations. But everyone wants to talk about the ISOs and the Melo. It's just, the Pacers are a fantastic pick and roll defense. They're huge. They're smart. They don't make mistakes. And every single Felton, Tyson Chandler pick and roll is, we're going to dare you to make this 13-foot runner over Roy Hibbert, who's going to time his help defense so that it doesn't look like you have a passing lane to Chandler rolling to the basket. And all the other guys guarding the perimeter shooters can stay at home or sort of minimize their level of help. And, on 13-foot runners over Roy Hibbert, you're going to have games where you're 5 of 19 on the pick and roll or whatever it is.
Yeah.
The Pacers just know what they're doing. And, Boston obviously does not have a guy who can affect the rim or who can protect the rim like that. And they don't have the size and discipline and everything else that Indiana has. Indiana's just on another level.
And then, I thought their bench was going to kill them in this series. DJ Augustine was really good in game 1. I think maybe next round, if they get past the Knicks, that'll be the round where they, having this weak bench isn't going to totally help them because, I guess actually, if Wade doesn't start looking more like Wade soon, maybe they can get by with it. As you watch Wade, what would you estimate he is right now? Like 65%?
It's funny with the Heat. You can never tell the degree to which they're sort of rope-a-doping and saving their energy for opponents that they respect more. And it's not that they don't respect the Bulls because they do, but Wade has just not been a huge part of the offense, right? But then there was a run in the third quarter of that game on Friday or whenever, game 3, where Wade posted up like 4 times in a row, scored once, then they doubled and they got a 3 out of it. Then he dunked, I think, off of a cut play from the corner. And it was like, oh, Wade just like essentially produced 7 points in 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
And all the numbers are down. He's not getting to the line. He threw some horrible passes, to the other team in the last couple of games, and his turnover rate is way up. But, then he shows you these glimpses of, okay, this is the guy he has to be. Is he just sort of waiting to be that guy? Does he need the knee drained again? But yeah, he's clearly not sort of putting his imprint on the game. What percentage he is, I don't know, but it's not close to 100.
Yeah, the two things you look at with him, or at least I look at free throw attempts. So he's played 6 playoff games, 33 minutes a game, 3.3 free throw attempts. So that basically tells me, all right, he's not going to the line at all. And then he's been really sloppy with the ball. It's not just turnovers. It's like how Paul Pierce in round 1, just really bad, unforced error turnovers. And Wade's had a few of those, which makes me wonder if he's 100% healthy. But yeah, this Miami team, it's so tough to figure out, right? The 27-game winning streak ends. They're basically on vacation for the rest of the regular season, but somehow still winning games. Round 1, Milwaukee, they sweep. Now they have another week off. They get kind of tagged in game 1. You know, they definitely look rusty. In game 3, it looked like they were ready to give that game away, and then they finally got going down in the last 5 minutes. It was interesting. Miami, they played Cole and Chalmers together, and it was pretty effective. Do you think, was that a fluke, or is that something that they could actually start doing as the playoffs go on?
Truthfully, I barely noticed when it was happening, and I don't even really remember it in my head right now, but I think they did a lot of things in that game where they're a little bit different. They opened the fourth quarter with Birdman and Bosch on the floor together, which is not typical for them. They typically, once they put in Battier for Haslam in the third quarter or the first quarter, they go small for the rest of the half, for the rest of the game, and they didn't do that. And I think it all just stemmed from Battier's foul trouble. Screwed up their rotation in a lot of ways. But yeah, I mean, look, we're sitting here hand-wringing about the Heat. What did they win by 10 in game 3? They're probably going to win tonight and wrap the series up in 5. And, we'll see how they fare against Indiana and New York and that thin bench of the Pacers you talked about.
And important to note, 43-3 in their last 46 games. That's insane.
Not bad.
That is insane. And
one of those losses was without LeBron.
Oh, post 27 gamer?
Yeah. Going into the playoffs, I wrote about this in the preview. There were something like 36-1 in the last 37 games that LeBron had played, which is sort of like, I hate to be boring, but I can't pick any other team. I mean, they went through almost half a season with LeBron losing 1 game. I can't pick any other team to beat them 4 times in 7 games. So yeah, the numbers are insane, and it's really, if Wade is closer to 65% than 100%, they're going to have an issue against a good team. They just haven't faced that team yet.
They need Wade or I'm saying for us to not just have Miami roll over everyone. We need Wade to be injured or playing injured. I would say Indiana might probably have the best chance out of all the remaining teams just because of their matchups. But in that case, we would need a monster Paul George making the leap kind of series. If it was, I would say out of the West teams, probably Memphis. If you're making a case for which team would match up the best and at least make Miami have to sweat for it. I like the way Memphis is playing right now. Conley. Did you ever see this Conley hitting this point?
I'm saving my Conley bullets for the column on Tuesday. Spoiler, Conley is the subject of my Tuesday
good.
column.
Save the bullets.
But he's very, very good and probably a little better than I thought he would be. But I've actually liked him for a couple of years, but he's done very well since the Rudy Gay trade. Let's put it that way.
I really liked him when I was working on the trade value and was waffling on whether to throw him in the top 50, and now he's in the top 50. What's interesting is, remember when they signed him to that 5-year, $45 million deal? And the general reaction was, oh my God, why did they do that? Like it just seemed like they overpaid for what he was at the time. And they probably did. Even now knowing what he's become, I still think they probably overpaid, but that's a pretty nice contract now. Now you're looking at
I think that's a cautionary tale too it's a cautionary tale for sort of like, you have to remember how young these guys are.
It's a great
when
point.
when their rookie deals are up. And so like when Tyreek Evans gets what he gets, or when DeMar DeRozan got what he got, the reaction is to laugh at it and say, what are these stupid GMs doing? But these guys, some of them are not going to hit their prime or hit their stride and really figure out the NBA till they're 25 or 26, and it becomes, look, Conley will not be the first or last guy whose contract is mocked and then midway through, like, wow, this actually is a pretty good contract.
Yeah, I said this to somebody the other day. They were just blown away. Mike Conley's only 25 years old. And that's amazing. I feel like he's like 30. But you forget he played 1 year in college and came into the NBA, and he was 19 years old.
As a twerp. He was a 19-year-old twerp. He couldn't guard anyone.
Yeah. Well, nobody's more excited than Mark Titus. If we have a Golden State Memphis Western Finals, would that be the greatest moment in basketball nerd metrics history? Would it be right up there? Who does the basketball nerd community side with in that series?
It depends. Basketball nerd is I think they have more the style and cool hipster points than they do even the nerd points. I don't know. I think Denver, Houston, any playoff series like that would have been the nerd porn series. And even
Memphis, Houston, maybe Hollinger versus Dirk Elvis.
Yeah, something like that. But it's not even that they're sort of I think Memphis and Golden State are sort of the league pass teams where everyone who's an NBA addict, whose other friends are just catching up with the NBA now, can sit back and crow and be like, this is the team I've been telling you about all year. Right.
That's a good point. And
see how good Marc Gasol is?
Yeah. And see how bad Jared Jack is at covering a pick and roll? I've been talking about this for months. He has no plan every time. But yeah, it is funny to watch the more casual basketball fans notice some of this stuff. I will say the one thing that's really changed with the Warriors, I saw Bogut in person probably mid-March, and guy couldn't move, just looked like the all-time bust of busts, and that trade was a disaster. It's not like he's moving that great now, but he's moving better. But I'm shocked by how big of an impact he's had in the playoffs. Did you see that coming?
You always had the possibility open in the back of your mind because he's playing, and even 75% of Andrew Bogut is better than Festus Ezeli, or whoever, or God forbid you even throw Biedrins in the game like they did yesterday.
Oh God.
So he can do things even at 75% sort of health and mobility, but he can't do what he's doing now. And none it goes without saying that forget the David Lee injury, or even with the David Lee injury, none of this is possible without Bogut's defense. And I thought yesterday he was just fantastic. Everyone wants to talk about Tony Parker's calf, and I'm sure that's limiting him. But I thought Bogut yesterday was really good on those Parker Duncan pick and rolls, at taking an extra step or two out of his comfort zone to at least make Parker think about that mid-range jumper, contest it when he shot it without sort of losing contact with Duncan. I thought his footwork was great. He looks like sort of ace defensive Andrew Bogut again.
Yeah, he had one possession near the end when Duncan really tried to go at him. And I think he blocked the first one, and then he altered the second one. It was in the same possession. I can't remember too many guys doing that against Tim Duncan. The other reason I really thought the Warriors were going to make a run in the second half, just because of that Friday night, Sunday afternoon thing, which I don't think people realize. Yeah, Tim Duncan, this is year 16 for him. That's tough for him to play a playoff game on a Friday night and then Sunday, and same thing for Parker. And now we're moving into this every other day thing. And, the Warriors are a young team. I think they can steal this series. What do you think is going to happen?
This is the toughest call on the board right now, and your gut wants to just say the team that has home court is going to win. And Ginobili, overtime struggles yesterday notwithstanding, sort of became Ginobili again for the first time in the series yesterday. But you look at this series, Golden State should be up 3-1.
Yes.
And other than Game 3, they've really controlled the Spurs offense. And that's troubling. If you're the Spurs, the first sign of trouble is when the humming offensive machine can't hum anymore, and you're struggling to get the right rotation. Splitter suddenly disappears in the second half on the bench. You can't play Bonner. All these guys who have been a key part of your offense and the ball movement are rendered not useful. And they still have a lot of talent, but it's starting to feel like a series that is sort of, it's felt like that from the beginning, a series that they don't control. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Golden State went down and won Game 5. And, Curry's got to be somewhere. If Curry can do what he did yesterday, which is make some jumpers, spot up, be a decoy, that might be enough to squeak out a road win. But that's going to be interesting to watch, and it's going to be interesting to see sort of how much respect the Spurs continue to show Curry? Do we throw Danny Green at him if he's just a decoy? Do we feel safe putting Parker back on him so that Green can defend one of these bigger wings? That's an interesting decision going forward.
Yeah, I agree. Curry was a glorified decoy yesterday, but really effective. 22 points, made half his shots. They always had to worry about him. They're putting him in the corner where he's just beyond deadly. And even just having him out there if he's not 100% healthy, really helps their offense. And then, the adrenaline got him going a little bit at the end, and I'm sure he did some stuff on that ankle that he probably didn't think he could do before the game. The fascinating part of yesterday's game was that Harrison Barnes-Tony Parker matchup. And even though he was, I think, 9 for 26, I liked all the shots. I liked the strategy. I think it wore down Parker. And the irony of this guy who all the North Carolina fans, he drove them crazy. He's not a big game guy. And now he's the focal point of their offense in this playoff series against the Spurs. I actually thought it got him engaged. I thought it was the most engaged I'd seen him in a playoff game. Do you think that can work again?
Definitely. And I think look, there were some people yesterday saying, well, he's only 9 for 26. These post-ups aren't working. And there were a couple against Gary Neal where Neal fought him pretty well, and he had to take tough 9-footers that he missed. But I bet, and I might do this if I have time, but I don't think I do. I bet if you went and charted every Harrison Barnes post-up against the little guy and charted the Warriors' points per possession on those plays, not just when Barnes shoots, but when he draws help and they swing it around to a three-point shooter, I bet their points per possession are really good. I feel like they're winning that matchup, even with the 9 for 26 yesterday. And some of those misses, he had like 3 or 4 putbacks that were sort of like wild putbacks attempts that missed, and like Landry might get the next one and put it back in. So I feel like he was really something like 9 for 22 on real shots yesterday, which isn't so bad. But yeah, I think that again, I'd have to chart it, but my guess would be that they're putting up a solid number when they can post up Barnes on a little guy.
I liked all of the shots. And again, I think he's one of those guys that you almost want to give more responsibility to because he can check out. And we both watch games where it's like, oh, I didn't even realize Harrison Barnes was out there. He's just for the whole half. He's just a no-show. And the more you get him involved, I think it's a bad matchup. If I'm San Antonio, that's not how I want to use Tony Parker, right? You don't want Tony Parker defending a 6'8" guy in the low post every possession. That's not the best use of him, and it hurts him on the other end. I still think Golden State's winning this series. I think they have a better team, but we've learned over the years never to count out the Spurs. Hey, last thing I wanted to bring up to you: Philadelphia hired another Sloan Conference All-Star here, Sam Hinkie, GM, yet another advanced metrics guy in a prominent position. Now, the more of these that we get, I don't understand how these teams are going to make trades with each other. It's going to be like this Mexican standoff every time we, hey, can you imagine the first Sam Hinkie, John Hollinger phone call for a trade? How would they even they both know what the other guy's thinking.
Yeah, neither one of them is taking Rudy Gay.
Right.
Unless there's some sort of other salary motivation put into it.
Right. But
Sam is that's a great hire for the Sixers. I mean, Sam is one of the only guys. Yeah, I think I know the game pretty well, and then I'm pretty smart about the NBA. He's one of the guys that I talk to when I get off the phone with him, and it's not that we talk much, or when I see him when I run into him in a game and we start talking hoops. He's one of the only guys around where I end the conversation thinking, "My God, I'm stupid," because that guy just threw me for a freaking loop.
Yeah, he knows everything. And there's a lot of guys like that. Now, I don't know Ryan McDonough, who Phoenix hired, but I know that's another guy that people feel has a pretty good grasp of, I don't want to say a new wave of thinking, but I do feel like there's a dichotomy between some of these old school guys, especially former players. And, it's not hard to look around the league and see some guys who maybe haven't embraced a new way of thinking. I think Rudy Gay, for a variety of reasons, has become the lightning rod of this conversation. And the new school of thinking is just like, there's no way you're going to win if you're paying that guy $18 million a year. And then the old school way of thinking is, but here's what this guy does for you. And he's somebody who isn't afraid at the end of games. And it's all these little hyperbole comments that aren't actually based in fact, and I think that Rudy Gay trade in a lot of ways was the Moneyball in 2003 kind of moment for the NBA. And how violently people feel one way or the other about that trade, nobody agrees. I haven't talked to anybody who is somehow in the middle of that trade. Like, people either love it or they hate it. And I know you're on the side of.
You should go back and read my reaction column to that trade. That's exactly where I was.
Yeah. Oh, you're in the middle?
My take was sort of like, this is exciting because the names are big, but I don't really think it moves the needle for either team. Like, I think
but you don't feel that way now.
Well, I do and I don't. Like, Memphis has definitely been, I'm going to get into this tomorrow. Memphis has definitely been better offensively than I thought they would be. But move the needle to me was the Grizzlies are a fringe contender with Rudy. They're a fringe contender without Rudy. And I still sort of think that's true, except that the Westbrook injury has opened up the Western Conference to everybody who's still alive.
Yeah, but I
certainly was not of the school that they were losing a very valuable piece of basketball property in Rudy Gay, that they would just die and they wouldn't know what to do in crunch time and how are they going to survive without 20 points per game. His absence did not really change my perception of their team.
And for a lot of people, it did.
Oh yeah, they were dead. They can't. How many people said you can't trade your leading scorer?
He's your best guy. He's your one guy who can go to war with LeBron. And it's like, he hasn't been that guy for 2.5 years. I don't know what guy you thought you were watching, but that's not the guy I've been watching. The guy I've been watching can't shoot anymore. And we have all these stats now that can explain exactly how bad his shooting is. And also, defensively, I think because he's 6'8" and long armed and athletic, and you have a tendency to romanticize the things that he brings to the table, but his actual performance wasn't that good defensively. He was slightly above average. I mean, he brought a couple things to the table, but I know you saw the same things. I thought he was lazy a lot of times in transition D and not as nearly as good of a rebounder as he should have been. I also don't think he's a small forward. I think he's more of a new wave small ball 4. That's where you're going to win if you're winning with Rudy Gay. I don't see winning at the 3 with him. Do you agree with that or no?
Well, that's what we're hitting Rudy a little bit here, but I do want to say, let's see how he does in Toronto, depending on what's going on there next year in the front office and the coaching staff. But more, that's a place where he has a chance to be used as a small ball 4. He just had, or he's going to have, this vision correction operation because his eyes have been bad for years, and he refuses to wear goggles.
Yeah.
Look, he started to shoot the 3 well in the last 10 games of the season, which of course meant nothing. But he was an average to above average 3-point shooter before he hurt his shoulder. And if he can become a 38% 3-point shooter, he's a completely different player than the guy that we've seen in the last year and a half or so. And then, so the Raptor thing, he could work there, and I'm open to that possibility.
So you're saying in about 9 months, when Rudy Gay is averaging 29 points a game because he can see.
No.
And I'm going to be like, wow, Rudy Gay, I can't believe how wrong I was about that trade. This guy's one of the best players in the league. That's not going to happen?
That is not going to happen.
I'm always amazed when when you're a professional athlete and the only thing you're in charge of is your own body, that you can't see, but years will go by without you telling anybody this. Like, how does that happen?
It seems strange, but I think they knew in Memphis. I don't think it was like a secret in Memphis. I think they knew he had vision problems, and he just didn't want to do anything about it, and they didn't feel like it was that big of a deal. But I guess the shooting numbers got to a point where he was like, I got to do something.
It would be like
I'm seeing 3 rims.
It would be like in 4 years from now if you'd be like, hey, I had these vision problems. I see 3 computers every time I write a column, and we didn't do anything about it for 4 years. It's just bizarre to me. But listen, the bottom line is in 2011, they made their run without him, and this year they're making a run without him. And it's not just that. It's the read between the lines quotes from some of the Grizzlies I think were pretty interesting about how they're back to what their identity should have been all along. And it's all like these little veiled shots at him. And I don't think, for a variety of reasons, he was a great fit. But Memphis, I think they have that series. I just don't think Oklahoma City has enough. I don't think they have a coach that's willing to make the changes on the fly that they need to make. I can't believe Perkins is still playing in this series. That's probably the biggest shocker for me in round 2.
I agree with everything you just said about the Grizzlies Thunder series. There was another Rudy thing that I wanted to say, but now I'm forgetting. Oh, here's what I'm saying. This is a rule that I'm going to say right now, and it's not up for debate. Every time the Grizzlies lose in the playoffs, which has happened, three times,
Mm-hmm.
I am inundated with tweets saying, "Oh, see, now they miss Rudy Gay. See, now if they had a crunch time scorer, well, now you see why they couldn't make that trade." And it's like double those tweets for all the Memphis reporters who were even-handed about the trade. The rule is you don't get to do that. They're in the second round and they're up 2-1.
And their
offense has been better for 3 months. You don't get to cherry pick the one loss and be like, now see, this is the evidence that they miss Rudy Gay. No, not allowed. Not allowed. They don't miss Rudy Gay. They have unequivocally won the Rudy Gay trade from their perspective.
Well, I'm sure I don't want to step on tomorrow's column. I'm sure it's in there, having known you long enough now. But Mike Conley is surprisingly good as somebody who can run the show in crunch time. And I think I had this in the trade value, but like his stats compared to the other quote unquote elite point guards in the last 5 minutes were kind of shocking. I didn't realize he was as efficient as he was. And then you got to hand it to him for going toe to toe with Chris Paul in round 1, right? He went toe to toe. Chris Paul's the best in the league.
Got off to a slow start, and then by the end of the series, he clearly found himself. I'm not going to waste my bullets. I'm not going to use my bullets today on Mike Conley because I need bullets for something else.
Save your bullets.
Tomorrow. But one thing I will say, you brought up Scott Brooks. I'm telling you, I know he just signed his extension. I know that they like him in Oklahoma City. This series, to me, is the encapsulation of everything that has been wrong with the job he's done there. And he's done a lot of nice things there, and I think he's actually unfairly criticized in some ways. But this is like this is the lack of an offensive system coming home to roost now. That you're minus Harden and you're minus Westbrook, and you're not the Spurs who can sit all of their stars and somehow put up 105 points in the regular season. Now they're playing Memphis. I realize their second best defense in the NBA, but you have Durant entering his prime. You have Westbrook coming back from a knee injury. All these guys, this to me is proof that if you're the Thunder and you're serious, you have to at least start thinking, is this the guy? Is this the guy right now? Because we don't need Scott Brooks doing the Doc Rivers thing where he rehabs his career 10 years down the line is not an option. You need the guy right now that is the championship coach.
And I'll add on, I'm not a Scott Brooks fan. I've had trouble hiding that over the last couple of years. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I just don't think he's a very good basketball coach. It's interesting. If Ibaka and Perkins don't get hot in San Antonio in Game 5, which was really a fluky game in a lot of ways, and Oklahoma City just loses to San Antonio last year, which really could have happened, I think he gets fired then. This is a guy they for a variety of reasons, they were afraid to extend. And he got to the finals, and then they had to extend him. But everyone who watched that finals was frustrated with how they were coached in that series. He stuck with Perkins way too long in that series, too. And their offense was predictable, and Miami was able to just pick it apart. And, that led to this year. I agree with you. I think if they get bounced, you have to put some serious thought, because the other problem here is if I'm Kevin Durant and I made this huge commitment to stay in Oklahoma City, you traded James Harden, who is now one of the best 10 to 11 players in the league, and also 23 years old, somebody I could have grown with, him, Westbrook, and Durant together. Aren't you just furious? How could you be happy?
Well, I'm sure that he understands the tax implications. Look, we don't need to rehash it. We know that they had a lot of other options. They didn't have to act when they did on Harden.
I'm just talking about Durant as a human being and somebody who made a commitment to stay with that team. And they made a trade that at the time people were a little shaky on. I was more shaky than others, but now looking back has to be considered nothing short of just a disaster for them long term, because they had no idea Harden was going to be this good.
Well, and then compounded with, their best offense right now, and I'm not exaggerating, I mean this quite literally, their best offense right now is Durant dribbles up and shoots a three. That's better than anything else they're going to run in this series because they have nothing in the bag. They have no system in the bag. They have plays, and Scott Brooks has refined those plays over the last couple of years and gotten more creative. And in that Spurs series you mentioned, I think midway through that series, they made a commitment to playing a more aggressive, smarter style of defense. He deserves credit for all that. But their offense right now is just nothing. And that they're in this series at all is a tribute to just how fantastic Kevin Durant is because they have nothing. Now, look, things change if Ibaka doesn't lose his jump shot, but teams have been living with that jump shot for 2 or 3 years now. Yeah. And they just have there's no offense. I really do think it would be fun to watch how many points could you score if Kevin Durant just went up and shot 3-pointers on every possession, and how fast would Memphis adjust by like triple teaming him in half court. I think that would be really fun to watch. Well,
they tried to do in the first half of Game 3, right? It was just helter-skelter. They realized, or at least Scotty Brooks must have realized this is our best chance to get points and kind of take Memphis out of the ground and pound. They took 49 shots in the first half, which is a lot. The pace was just every rebound go. And it worked for a half. Then Memphis figured it out. And then it was like, uh-oh, now what do we do? And you're right. You might be better off with Durant just shooting 28-footers every time down and having the other crazy thing about this series and why I think Memphis is going to finish it in 5, so much Derek Fisher. Did you ever think we'd see this much Derek Fisher in a playoff series? Him taking big shots.
He's hot on catch and shoots, except now when he takes these floaters off the dribble that miss the rim by like 5 feet.
Yeah. He takes the old guy pick up basketball shots where it's like the old guy gets hot and then you drive to the rim and do a spin move and you miss the rim by 7 feet and everybody's like, oh, that was awkward. That's Derek Fisher at this point in his career. I feel bad for Durant because he's been just absolutely extraordinary and spectacular and everything we'd ever wanted from the guy, and he's got no help at all. Would you put this team ahead or behind of the 2009 Cavs?
The who?
His guys 2 through 12 right now that Durant has, would you put them ahead or behind the 2009 Cavs?
Wow, the supporting cast?
Jameson, I feel like, is better than anybody in the Thunder right now except for Durant.
Wow, Jameson even then. I mean, the Celtics, well, that's 2009, 2010. Yeah, I mean,
at least he could get a basket.
They had Delonte. They had, they had some quality shooters.
Verjao.
Z. That's a tough. I mean, they had Shaq, who couldn't really move.
No, Shaq was 2010. They just had Z.
That's in 2010 specifically. Okay.
No, I was going 09. Because 09, that was the year when LeBron put up the 35, 9-9 or whatever he did in the 14 playoff games, and then Orlando just blew him out.
Yeah, they had Mo Williams by then, who was, I believe that's the year where he had his fake All-Star appearance.
Yes. Right? That was a better supporting cast.
It might have been. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Ibaka. But without Westbrook, they just don't. The Cavs are probably better. Yeah, without Westbrook, the Cavs are better. Obviously, with Westbrook, the Thunder, he by himself is a better supporting cast than everyone we just mentioned.
Poor Durant. All right, you should go back to working on your column. All right, although you should give a welcome to Andrew Sharp, who joins Grantland today.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what you have in store for him. I can see from your Twitter account that he is out in LA seeing the sights.
Yeah, we tried to, we wanted to bring him to the office to make sure, so he could meet everybody and know we were all human beings instead of people on.
It's important to know. It's important to know that people are
good.
real.
We did the same with you.
They can have conversations in real life.
Yeah, you put faces on people, you get coffee with them. It's a good thing. Anyway, Zach Lowe, go back to work. We will talk to you next Monday.
Have fun, man.
Take it.
So I get to sign off. Whoa.
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Podcenter at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.
Gotta say, Golick, great call on grabbing Subway for lunch and getting guacamole on our subs.
Told you this new guac really amps up the flavor.
Yep, something adding up things can be great. Guacamole on your sub, a new co-host to replace you.
What was that?
Oh, no, nothing.
Subway now has deliciously rich new guacamole made from ripe Hass avocados with just a hint of garlic, onion, and jalapeno. Discover how new guacamole turns up the flavor on any of your freshly made favorites. Subway, eat fresh.